The circular economy is one in which we do three key things. We reduce waste, we keep products in use, and we ultimately regenerate natural systems. This is in contrast to a linear economy, where we create something, we use it, and we dispose of it. In a circular economy, we take those products, we reduce the waste associated with them, we keep the materials in use, which is where the kind of circle of circular economy comes in, and we ultimately look to improve the environment around us. I think in the circular economy, it's really exciting when it comes to employee engagement because for a lot of other sustainability topics like water management or community relations, there's often a superintendent or a manager who's responsible for that. But your everyday average employee can't really engage in a lot of our other sustainability topics. Whereas in the circular economy, everyone consumes products. Everyone can choose what they ultimately do with that product in the long term, whether it's personally, like the products that we buy in our homes, moving towards zero waste at our operations, or when it comes to product purchasing. Many of us control budgets where we work with contractors or we purchase products. The questions we can ask ourselves in the circular economy and as we apply that kind of paradigm to our work is where are those products coming from? How are they made? How am I going to use it or potentially reuse it, reincorporate it into our operations? And where will it end up? And if we feel like when we answer those questions that the outcome isn't positive, then we may want to reconsider how we work with those products. And that's very much when it comes to taking action in circular economy in your day to day lives. When we think about the circular economy, it's really nothing new. People have been thinking about it for decades, but they called it product stewardship or cradle to cradle, or a term that you may recognize at Teck, materials stewardship. The idea of circular economy, though, has broadened to think about the waste that we're generating around the world. Really, the idea of waste was created in the 1950s as we moved really to that single use, either plastic or other materials to make our lives more convenient. Now we have an incredible waste problem on our hands. For example, when you think about e waste, there's over 50 million tons of e waste produced every year. That's roughly equivalent to 125,000 jumbo jets or 4,500 Eiffel Towers. It's immense, and only a small fraction of that e waste is actually recycled. The next key thing that we think about in circular economy is the world is, of course, getting bigger. We're moving from about 7.3 billion people today to 8.5 in 2030. And by 2030, there'll be over 30 new megacities. Those megacities, of course, require a lot of resources. And those people, as they move from rural centers to urban centers, are becoming healthier and wealthier, and they're consuming more and more. Of course, there's a finite amount of resources available. So, in a circular economy, we're thinking about how we have those resources available for those people and keeping those products in the highest use possible. The next key thing, the last I think in circular economy, is more and more consumers like you and I are really thinking about where products come from and where they go. So there's an expectation that products are, fair trade chocolate, fair trade coffee, organic, and you'll be seeing that, of course, with metals and minerals more and more responsibly produced that contribute to that circular economy. So, when you think about the circular economy being focused on reducing waste, keeping products in use, and regenerating natural systems, there are two key components for why it's been identified for tech. One is that we produce a lot of waste at our operations. We produce, of course, hazardous waste like chemicals and solvents, and non hazardous waste like glass and plastic and wood. We also produce the broader definition of waste, whether it's emissions to air, effluent, or wastewater, and of course, mineral waste through tailings. In circular economy, we're focused on the hazardous and non-hazardous waste. There's a lot of opportunity there for regaining the value that we lose and throwing those products out, or the fees that we pay to landfill the products or to move them off-site. So, especially in a cost-constrained world, looking at circular economy as a way of reducing waste is both about reducing our footprint and regaining that lost value. The second key component is ultimately the products that we produce, the raw materials like copper concentrate, zinc concentrate, metallurgical coal, but also the finished products through trail operations. When we think about those increasing customer and consumer expectations, in a circular economy, that's only going to grow, where we have to ensure that we produce these products responsibly and that we can demonstrate that. The term circular economy is really a popular buzzword right now, but in fact, we've been thinking about these concepts with tech for decades, but instead we call them product stewardship or material stewardship or life cycle assessments. There's been a long history of thinking about where our products go and making sure that they're dealt with responsibly. We have a master product list, for example, of all the products we sell, especially through Trail, but also our concentrate and other products. And speaking of Trail, we have a long history of recycling products there, especially when it comes to the secondary metals that have been used for really interesting applications, like the metals that we recycled from e-waste being used in the medals for the Vancouver 2010 Olympics. I'd also say across our operations, there's already many champions thinking about waste. There's Mario Tellerico, the investment recovery lead at HBC, who runs miningsurplus.com, where they sell used equipment and then they invest those funds back into infrastructure and capital allocation. We think about what's happening in the Elk Valley, of people thinking about how landfills are used and looking to sort out materials so that we can reduce the amount of waste that's transported. When we think about the oil that we produce that has to be shipped off to Alberta to deep wells, we can do things differently. For example, instead of shipping all the oil and water together, we can separate that out so that we just ship the oil, reducing our cost, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and ultimately helping to reduce the amount of waste that we have on site. So many different examples of people already applying circular economy thinking. We just haven't been calling it that. So I think the real opportunity here is to really leverage the energy across the organization for reducing waste, helping ensure that our products are responsibly produced, and setting that direction for the path forward for the entire organization.